Well, I'm now joined in the studio by John Cooper Clarke, Bard of Salford and the punk poet. Hello, John.
Hello, Roger.
Hello, good evening. Right. John, we began with the Buzzcocks and Whatever Happened To. Now, in the music press this weekend, there was a band from Gloucester called D-Mob, a punk band, and they said that 5 years ago, punk seemed to mean so much, but now 5 years on, they've still got nothing. What's ever happened to punk?
Well, I mean, I just saw it as like a way of dressing, really.
Yeah.
You know, no more than that. I mean,
was it not an expression of perhaps a pretty dire time that people were going through in the late 70s?
Yeah, kind of. It was sort of to do with the lyrical, the style of music, style of dress, group identity thing. I mean, it's completely different now. It's sort of, it seems to be what goes down as punk seems to be like an all-male environment,
Yeah. Now, you expressed yourself, and you still express yourself through poetry. Now, I went to a large comprehensive school in South Wales, and we regarded poetry as a bit effete, a bit la-di-da, and really embarrassing when we got asked to read out poems. How do you end up as a poet?
Well, I was always interested in it, like as a subject, poetry. I mean, it wasn't always like done at a walking pace. I know the kind of poetry that one tends to get pushed in school, pushed in schools. The kind of pastoral stuff of 200 years ago. But I mean, there is some very kind of passionate and vibrant and fast poetry around,
When you sort of came to prominence, what was it, around about 1976?
Yes, yeah, about 76, yeah.
Now, bands that were around with you then were bands like, The Damned, The
Clash.
Clash.
The Buzzcocks.
The Buzzcocks, of course, that we started the show off with. Yeah. Also the Pistols. Also the Stranglers. Now, the Stranglers have just released Golden Brown. Well, recently released Golden Brown. It's right at the top of the charts. Does it surprise you to hear that song from your experience of the late 70s?
How do you mean? Does it surprise me to hear that song?
They were a band that were very much a part of a particular movement around the 70s, but they seem to have changed so dramatically over the last 5-6 years. Some people would say perhaps that they've sold themselves out. Would you go along with that?
Oh no, I think Golden Brown's a really stylish song. It's great.
Okay, John. Well, and here it is, Golden Brown and the Stranglers. The Stranglers and Golden Brown. You're listening to Street Level here on Tees, and I'm joined in the second hour of tonight's show by John Cooper Clarke. Now, John, you're up in the area to perform at the Teesside Poly tonight.
Yep.
And are you doing a tour of colleges at the moment?
Sort of polytechnics and clubs.
Yeah. Where were you last night?
I was at the Warehouse in Liverpool.
Oh, yeah. Now, I understand you're undergoing a national tour in a few weeks' time with Linton Kwesi Johnson.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, Linton Kwesi Johnson, if anyone doesn't know, is another poet, another great poet and musician. Who decided to put the two of you together to go on tour?
Well, we've worked together before, we are friends. And I think Penguin offered to put up... Penguin Books offered to put up a bit of money for this tour because I think Linton's got a publishing deal with them, and I may have a publishing deal with them if they improve their offers.
Yeah. Now, do you see yourselves very close? Now, Linton Kwesi Johnson's culture is that of the West Indies. Yours is of...
Well, no, he would say that his culture is that of the black British.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And communities such as...
Brixton, Moss Side,
So do you feel close to him yourself, coming from Salford, just outside Manchester?
In what we do, yeah, I think it's very close.
Yeah. Now
it's a good idea putting the two of us on together because we both got completely different stylistic approaches to reading poetry,
How would you then define Linton Kwesi Johnson's approach to reading poetry?
Well, he's kind of slow and intense, very rhythmic, but very slow as well. There's a lot of kind of empty space in the middle of his poems, But it's great. It's a different approach,
Okay, well, here's Linton Kwesi Johnson and Street 66. 257. And now joining John Cooper Clarke and myself into the studio is John Hodgson. Hello, John.
Hello there.
Hello. What's going on in the 257 area this week?
Well, as far as gigs are concerned, tonight, Monday the 22nd of February, If you haven't already realised, John Cooper Clarke is at the Teesside Poly Main Hall. Also tonight, the Signs and the Commercial Acrobats are at the Club Fiesta in Norton. Tuesday the 23rd of February, that's tomorrow night, Judge McKinley is at Lucinda's in Darlington. And on Thursday the 25th of February, Still Active and Forward Childhood are at the Jovial Monk in North Ormsby. And that's it for gigs. And I thought it'd be rather appropriate, seeing we've got John in the studio, to play a single by the Gynecologists, which is like the local John Cooper Clarke, and it's called The Red Pullover.
Right, oh, we all fart when the drum machine farts. French people watch a film knowing there may be a bomb planted in the cinema foyer. The film is a subjective examination of the brutal, hasty condemnation of Christian Ranucci, only 22. Not a civilized thing to do. Another man guillotined in France. How can they take such a chance? A right-wing group have said they will plant bombs and try to kill in cinemas which dare to show it. Wouldn't you know it? Aix-en-Provence and Toulon have said the film can't go on. Other southern towns have had it banned. Elsewhere, record crowds are planned.
The Red Pullover
It's the title of the movie.
The Red Pullover
Was found at the murder site. The film was lucky to be seen as a court battle there has been to decide if it invaded the private life of the unfortunate husband and wife whose 9-year-old daughter died. Gilles Perrault said the government tried to rush the trial and prosecution so public opinion could have its execution.
The Red Pullover
It's the title of the movie.
The Red Pullover
Was found at the murder site. Perrault said a known child molester was seen in the area wearing a red sweater. Police beat a confession out of Ranucci, and the lawyers, judges and even the jury conspired to overlook lapses in evidence as a mob outside undermined their confidence by demanding an execution must take place, incensed by another irrelevant child murder case.
The Red Pullover
Proves they got the wrong man.
The Red Pullover
Didn't belong to Ranucci. Vinny.
Red Pullover from the Gynecologists. Now, John Cooper Clarke, when you started reading your poetry, you were the first. You were the original. Well, as far as I was concerned, you were the first one I ever came across, and the music press to make a great deal of it. Now, there seems to be a tremendous upsurge of sort of John Cooper Clarke clones all over the country. Does that bother you at all?
Which is not to say that the chap that's just finished reciting is, in fact, a John Cooper Clarke clone. But they do exist. I do see people sort of dressed up like me at gigs sometimes. But I like it. I think it's intriguing, you know. I think it's great. It's great seeing people dressed up like me.
And what about the stuff that they actually read? What about their poetry? What do you make of it?
Well, of course, they're not all these people that dress up like me are not always poets, you know. They're just like the image, you know. But the ones, I mean, in fact, the ones that usually read poetry don't actually dress like me. But yeah, there are a lot of people whose stylistic approach to poetry is copped off me. Yeah, there's quite a lot of them around.
Yeah. Now, one usually associates poetry with something rather removed from everyday life, something rather incredibly different, away from the streets of Stockton, the streets of Salford. Are you moving in the literary circles now?
Well, I'm not no, I wouldn't say I was moving in literary circles, but I am recognised by that quarter now. In fact, you know, I do actually do gigs that are in front of a literary type audience. Yeah, I have done. Yeah.
And do you enjoy that?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's fine. But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do those places to the exclusion of clubs and, you know, more accessible places, you know.
Now, you were
I would
born.
always do them.
You were born in Salford in Manchester.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you still draw your inspiration from your early childhood in Manchester, as your albums like Shouting Your Mouth Off and that album?
Well, no, because I don't live in Manchester anymore. I live in a place called Stevenage, which is like a giant council estate just outside London. So that's where I get my inspiration from these days, I suppose.
That seems a rather odd move, you know, from Salford, Manchester, the earthiness of Salford and Manchester, to Stevenage.
No, well, I mean, my girlfriend lives down there, you know, and she works down. She's got a job, you know. It doesn't matter where I live. I've got to travel to work, so I might as well live down there with her. That's my reasons.
Okay, John, let's hear 36 Hours. John Cooper Clarke and 36 Hours. Well, John, what led you to write that song?
I think I'd just seen a prison movie called The Big House, starring I think it was James Cagney. It's about a prison breakout, you know, a 1940s film. And it occurred to me that I hadn't written a number about a prison yet. And everybody writes a song about a prison, you know, so I just sort of wrote about this place that was like the worst prison you could possibly imagine, you know. 36 hours. Everybody looks like Ernest Borgnine. I think I probably got that line before anything else, actually. Everybody looks like Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah. Now, tonight you're performing without a band. Which do you prefer?
Well, I always want to do this, what I'm doing now, you know, like just my solo performances. I enjoy that, and it's an aspect of my career that I don't want to lose ever, you know. But occasionally, in order to sell albums, because I make albums with music, occasionally it's called upon me to go out with a band. And this I enjoy. It's far less taxing in a physical sense, in that when I'm doing solo performances, I have to be rabbiting every second of my 45 minutes or so on stage, you know, and it like wears you out. It really wears you out. But of course, performing with a group, it's excuse me, performing with a group, it's more like being a singer. So you know, you can. There are spaces where you can just relax, you know.
Do you ever feel at all that perhaps music could express something that words cannot, and that you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the numbers that I write with the group in mind are written in taking that into account. Yeah.
Okay, John. Well, coming up after the break, we'll be hearing what your most popular choice of a record would be. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be coming up after the break here on Radio Tees. Well, John, earlier today I asked you what would be your all-time great track, and you picked Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come.
Well, actually, no, I picked Shirley Bassey, What Now, My Love, but you haven't got that, so I picked Jimmy Cliff,
what a
The Harder They Come.
Yeah, why is that?
I love the bass figure in it, and it was a great movie.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Cliff's a terrific singer.
Well, John Cooper Clarke's in the studio with me now. The new singles, well, I should say independent labels, they really sort of mushroomed around about the time when you came on the scene in 1976. And they seem to have, well, I don't know, even gone further underground or perhaps even died off over the last few years. Why do you think this is, John?
I've no idea. I certainly think that they should be encouraged now, particularly now, because the majors have kind of, after being initially kind of falling over themselves to snap up new wave and punk acts, you know, they've kind of really, you know, had their fingers burnt, and the present economic climate does not encourage them to be adventurous in who they sign up. So I think there's more need now than at any other time for independent labels.
Now, you're on a very big label indeed. Does that cause you at all any artistic problems?
No, none that I would like to bore anybody with, you know. I mean, not really.
Okay, well, here's Slaughter and the Dogs and Cranked Up Really High. Slaughter and the Dogs there and Cranked Up Really High. Coming up after the break, there'll be more from John Cooper Clarke.
Oofda.
A distant relation, a family affair. John Cooper Clarke, what sort of family did you come from?
Working class Catholic.
And what do they think
sort
of
Catholic Bolsheviks.
What do they think of what you're doing now?
Well, my dad's dead, but my mother, she likes it, you know. Yeah, she's seen my shows. She likes them.
And they accept the fact that you are a poet.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Now, how does one go about writing poetry? Do you actually sit down in the morning and say, right, I'm going to write a poem, or what?
Well, under ideal conditions, I would say that you definitely need a working routine, right? But at the moment, I'm moving house. You know, I'm looking for a place to live. So my routine's gone out the window. But yeah, under normal circumstances, I would say I have a working routine. It's my intention, for instance, to rent some office space as soon as I get settled.
And do you feel sort of inspired and, oops, I've got a poem coming on, and just sit down and write it, or what?
Yeah, it happens like that quite often, yeah. I mean, I never go anywhere without a notebook and a pen, you know. But generally, I mean, if you haven't got a routine, if you haven't got a working routine, you forget what inspiration is. Because inspiration is that thing that interrupts your everyday routine. And if you haven't got an everyday routine to interrupt, you know, you can lose sight of what inspiration actually is.
Do you write anything else apart from poetry? Do you write any stories at all?
Yeah, I've written stories. I wrote a crime novel when I was at school, which I still sort of do odd sections out of it in my act, actually, the more violent passages.
What's it about?
It's a kind of Mickey Spillane type, crime scenario.
I would have thought a possible progression for yourself might be going into playwriting. Have you considered it at all?
Yeah, I mean, playwriting, it seems to me much easier than writing poetry. Because there's so much you can leave out when you're writing plays. You're just telling people what to say, really, and what to do.
Would you see music at all working in that, in your play? Would it be a musical play?
No, I don't think so. No.
I Married a Monster from Outer Space. What made you write a song like that?
That's the title is taken from a 1950s sort of American Cold War sci-fi movie, you know, for Monster Read Russian, one of them kind of movies. But the title intrigued me. I sort of thought of the social implications of marrying a monster from outer space. And of course it has a kind of, it's an allegorical poem about racism.
I Married a Monster from Outer Space. You'll be hearing more from John Cooper Clarke after the break. Well, I'm joined in the studio tonight on Street Level by John Cooper Clarke, and if you already don't know, John Cooper Clarke is appearing at the main hall in Teesside Polytechnic tonight. The doors are already open, and tickets for tonight's gig are £2.25 if you're a student or unemployed, and £2.50 for anyone else. And the gig, well, there's a late licence until 11:30. John should be on stage about 10 o'clock. Now, John, it's 5 to 8. Do you feel yourself getting wound up for the gig?
Yeah, I always get wound up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, most musicians would do, a warm-up. They'd be tuning up. They'd be perhaps doing a bit of a workout on the guitar, getting the fingers working. What do you do as a poet?
I gargle with TCP.
Do you do voice exercises at all?
No.
No? Or
No.
work on diction?
No.
No. So, and do you get yourself in some sort of frame of mind at all? Do you sit and relax and think about distant things, or what?
No, I just get wound up.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how do you go about getting wound up?
Well, it takes care of itself, I mean, it's
Yeah.
no particular technique for it.
Do you play an instrument at all in your one-man show? Do you play any music?
Well, no, not in my. I won't be playing any tonight.
Yeah.
It's just me and my big mouth.
Yeah. And you do play, don't you?
I do play a bit. Yeah, I play guitar.
Yeah. And how do you actually feel about music? Is it something that you just see as an aid to your poetry, or is it something else? Your use of music.
My particular use of music, yeah, it's a sort of it's like oral wallpaper for the poetry. Yeah.
Do you ever use it at all?
Packaging.
Packaging and nothing else. Just a vehicle for expression.
Well, it helps. I mean, it's handy, and say I've got a poem that deals with an unpleasant, uses unpleasant subject matter. It helps to have a really pretty tune to go with it,
Well, John Cooper Clarke, thanks very much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you.
And I hope the tour continues as well as it has so far. And as I say, you'll be out on tour in a couple of weeks' time with Lyndon Kwesi Johnson.
Yep.
There'll also be a new album. Well, there's a new album in the pipeline. We'll be hearing more about that on Street Level in the weeks to come. Taking us out of tonight's show is The It Man.